Well, we should pick another.
We didn't.
Decided to put everything in the RV.
That
good, huh?
You do just drive around and check
It
out
was
the same load.
No, it's literally my backyard. And today I saw
Go
a
into
group
Russian
of three
Jacks
kids
on
on
one.
like the little bikes, basically trolling, looking at windows. And so I went and looked, and not only did they bust one door open, they figured out the crack. They removed the 10 screws that like cured the other one. So they're wanting to move in. This is what's going on.
So you just said that.
I'm really grateful.
And then I had.
Did I tell you my most embarrassing story?
Yeah.
No.
I can't say it.
Forrest, I had a meeting with him and he said.
So the first time, right?
Right.
So I'm at home, it's literally my backyard.
Seriously.
This isn't- And so.
Design study for it. And that they just need our energy. So that it would be like a reconnaissance study to work with the military to figure out the best route.
Whatever. And I come around the corner.
Because they want to kind of wrap it into a long trail.
I'm usually the person who's
And that's the way to get to the.
Absolutely.
It's like,
That's the closest.
so it happened.
Okay.
Which I know.
Yeah. Right. Right.
But in fact,
I did not hear that.
it was
story.
hilarious.
Unless you want them
It's legal, it's all good.
to see the city.
It was not
But
how
there's
I
some
would have
people who are
wanted.
gonna wanna.
I'm just glad APD wasn't there yet.
So.
Would have made it even more complicated.
You did not make the papers. You didn't even make my email.
It's hilarious.
We'd have to get Stu to.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 3:01 p.m. Today is the 15th of August, 2023. This is a special meeting of the Anchorage Assembly. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Member Scott Myers,
Here.
Member George Martinez,
Present.
Member Felix Rivera,
Present.
Member Karen Bronga,
Here.
Member Zach Johnson,
Here.
Member Christopher Constant.
Here.
Chair Christopher Constant. Meg Zalatel,
She is excused.
Member Kevin Cross,
Here, thank you.
Member Daniel Volland,
He is excused.
Member Anna Brawley,
Here.
Member Randy Solt, and Member Cameron Perez Verdia. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I'm going to put someone on the spot. Ms. Bronco, would you say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Brawley, would you please read the land acknowledgement?
Yes, Mr. Chair. A land acknowledgement is a formal statement recognizing the indigenous peoples of a place. It is a public gesture of appreciation for the past and present indigenous stewardship of the lands that we now occupy. It is an actionable statement that marks our collective movement towards decolonization and equity. The Anchorage Assembly would like to acknowledge that we gather today on the traditional lands of the Dena'ina Athabascans. For thousands of years, the Dena'ina have been and continue to be the stewards of this land. It is with gratefulness and respect that we recognize the contributions, innovations, and contemporary perspectives of the Upper Cook Inlet Dena'ina.
Thank you. On our agenda today, we have two items of business. We'll start with item 4A, Resolution AR 2023-275, Resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage adopting the 2023 Housing and Community Development Annual Action Plan, 2023 Action Plan, which constitutes application to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, the Home Investment Partnership Program, HOME, and the Emergency Solutions, ESG.
Waive reading.
Thank you. So both of these items we have today are for public hearing. So is there anyone from the public who wishes to be heard on this plan, on this item? Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing none. The public hearing on this item is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Rivera, seconded by Ms. Brawley. Mr. Rivera.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to be speaking, if you may indulge me, just once on both of these items. Generally, I just want to thank the Anchorage Health Department for getting us here today. I know there was a little bit of concern about the timeline. I think, as folks know, this item is due on August 16th, so tomorrow. And there was a little bit of concern that we might not meet that timeline for an approved application. So I'm glad that we are going to be able to meet that timeline and get in our approved application on time, rather than submitting an unapproved application. I think aside from the timeline, as folks heard at the work session yesterday, there was a good amount of discussion around unspent funds. And so I think those are two primary issues that led to the discussion today. Is let's try to get a sense of what our unspent funds look like. And we went into that a little bit yesterday, and I'm sure we'll keep going into that discussion. And then let's meet the deadline. Especially if we're going to be advocating for more funding from HUD, I think it's important that we get our house in order, and that means meeting the deadlines. That also means no more bad headlines, because we got to be honest, folks at the national level watch our headlines. But again, thanks to the Health Department for your collaborative work on this. On the 2023 action plan, so the item that we just closed public hearing on, I'm supportive of the funding as put forward.
Mr. Salt has arrived to the meeting. He actually arrived just as we closed the public hearing. And Mr. Salt, would you please mute your phone? Thank you.
Thanks. And I am supportive of the funding that's being put forward by the Health Department as they have programmed it. I know there was a suggestion about an amendment, but it looks like that's not going to be possible with the specific program funding suggested. So I'm supportive of the plan as is. On the substantial amendment, which I believe is did I get these backwards? I did get these backwards. No, I didn't. Never mind. On the substantial amendment, which is the next item, I hope that the funding is going to allow ALP project to close out, because I know that project has been going on for a while, and I'm sure that's been stressful for them, stressful for us, stressful for everyone.
Mr. Rivera, I'm going to ask you to hold that comment for that item, only because then it'll be part of that record.
Sure. Okay, got it. Then I'll just make one final comment. Then we are going to be having, I think, a greater focus as the Housing and Homelessness Committee, and hopefully as the Assembly body, on federal funding into the future. I know Chair Constant has been advocating pretty heavily with our congressional delegation and with HUD directly. And in particular, I'm really hoping that we take this opportunity to look at leveraging of funds from the local, state, federal, and philanthropic level. We know that we can do really great things with these funds when we work together. Just look at the guest house, complex care, the Barrett Inn, the Lake House. We know that we can get things done, and looking forward to continuing these discussions and continuing the collaboration with the administration and our other partners. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The only thing I would say about that comment, Mr. Rivera, is when you said, if we are going to continue advocating for more federal funding, I will say when. It's very essential. Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I am supportive of the plan. However, while I have copied the plan itself, the resolution 2023-275, and then also the 2023-276, the amendment, neither of those seems to be live and on base. I can't find digital copies of them elsewhere.
Okay, so we'll make sure we send out email copies to members presently, and I'm not sure about on base. So we will figure that out right now as a technical matter. So why don't we hold on just a minute before we proceed any further until we have acknowledgement that it's up on base, or we find a way to get it up. Mr. Collis.
If I may, I may have erred. My understanding was that for items like this on short notice that I did not hit the approve button in on base. So I did not do that. We brought the copies, and I think we emailed Word versions. If I need to approve them in on base, they're in my queue. I can go get my laptop and do it right now.
So I think probably you're right that these kind of pop-up special meetings don't have the same requirement, but since this is a HUD requirement to have a public hearing, the item should be published somewhere. And so we'll go ahead and make sure at least it's up on one of our websites, items of interest, or I'm not sure where, before we take our final action. I will note that the public notice was published on the public notice page, so the public hearing was noticed. If anyone else wants to talk about the item, we can while we wait to get it published. I certainly don't want to proceed. Ms. Brawley?
Yeah, thank you. And following up on Mr. Rivera's comments, one, I appreciate the work of the health department to get this ready and to make sure that we're thinking strategically about our funds. And then I also thank the coalition for submitting ideas for how to use those funds. And as Mr. Rivera said, and as we talked about in the work session, it looks like it's not an allowable use under that particular bucket. So I do hope that we can find ways to fund, whether it's through this or another means, to fund rental assistance, because I know that that is a relatively small dollar amount per household, but makes a huge impact on eviction prevention. And then also to say, I do support some of the ideas that have been raised about acquisition of property and really like thinking, connecting that conversation with the other conversation about vacant and abandoned properties and really putting more of our buildings back into productive use. So just to say, I look forward to supporting this, but I'm glad we also started talking about all those other big topics. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? So note that the email has been now circulated, so members have it in their inbox with the 2 items. We're still waiting to know. We have it published on a municipal website. Do you know, Ms. Hines? Okay, thank you. Yep, they have it. I've received that feedback. So I will speak briefly then to this unspent funds conversation. When we met with the region director, Ms. Salazar, she was very pointed about that. And I think that as we move forward in our conversation with HUD, that's going to be, I think, 1/3 of our effort is to ensure that we are aggressively and assertively spending all dollars that we can, and perhaps identifying additional federal funds that are in competitive categories, not in just categories that are automatically funded to the local government, that we work to secure funding for. And in the past budget year cycle, Mr. Colhase, we offered through ARPA, maybe it was 2 funding cycles ago now, that we would fund so the administration could hire a team of grant writers and people who could effectively implement an aggressive campaign by the municipality to secure funding under HUD umbrellas, under infrastructure umbrellas, under transportation department umbrellas, under all the umbrellas, so that we could bring down the incredible generational wealth that's occurring right now because of the infrastructure funding that happened in the last 1.5 to 2 years. And so in the last cycle, the fear by the administration was, well, why would we hire grant writers if we can't hire people to do the work? And I would like to offer a suggestion that we flip that conversation on its head and let's hire teams of professionals to help us secure the funding. And then let's worry about that second part after we have the resources. Because if we don't, it's the chicken and the egg problem. We'll never have the staff because we can't hire them because we don't have the money. We'll never have the money because we don't have the staff because we can't hire them. Well, the funding is available now. Let's be competitive and put together a proposal for us to support that we can do that, because there are billions and billions of dollars available to help support the causes of this municipality. So I think that that would help us with the secretary when we go and aggressively fight for an equitable share of formula funding, that we are doing everything we can on every other front. And then when we get in front of the secretary, we can say, it's not fair that you make us work hard to get competitive dollars when other communities receive formula funds way out of proportion, but we're doing it anyways. That way they don't have that as a reason why they can defer to other projects. So anyhow, are we getting closer to a published item? We could probably just publish them up on the housing website, the housing committee website. Perfect. Yeah, I think that would be a great opportunity to fund a small team that is just aggressively out there raising money. other people's money. It's easier to spend than tax money. So others, Ms. Branca?
I just am concerned that, I talked yesterday about that mental health assisted living. I don't really see anything on this list that addresses behavioral health and maybe I just don't recognize what it is. But I would hope that we could add a component because we know how big the problem is in Anchorage and figure out a way that we can leverage some HUD dollars to help with housing. People with mental health issues are very difficult. They need more supervision than a regular revamping a apartment building or revamping a hotel.
I'll jump in there again too and just say many years ago now, I kind of got laughed out of the room when I proposed that the muni do what it had done many years ago and come up with a division of behavioral health or department under the health department, whose job it was to think about all of those things with professionals who would lead the charge and who are skilled in that area. And it may or may not be HUD, but it could be U.S. Department of Health and Social Services or other departments that would fund such things. Gets back to the previous point that if we have an aggressive effort to meet people where they are, we can do a better job all around. So I agree that we have to figure out a behavioral health component to our health function. Probably real close.
I think we're just waiting on the internet now.
Okay,
Can I see one more?
please, Ms. Branca.
So I did double check with this Anchor House and someone told me that they actually only work with people with developmental disabilities, but they don't. They also have a section that works with people with schizophrenia and different really difficult mental health issues. So, and I know that they are trying to expand, and that's all I know is that API director told me that this SK, who's the director of the Anchor House, has been trying to work with the state to add 60 beds and is having some difficulty. So it would be really nice to try to, I know nothing about if this is a good organization or not, but there's not too many to choose from.
So we're going to go ahead and assume that the documents are now available on a website and we're going to proceed. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on AR 2023-275 before we proceed to vote on the matter? I think hearing and seeing none, Madam Clerk, members may proceed to vote.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Ms. Branca,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Constant,
Yes.
Mr. Cross,
Yes.
Ms. Brawley,
Yes.
Mr. Salt.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Was that 9-0?
9-0.
On a vote of 9-0, AR 2023-275 has passed the body. Next up, we have item 4B, AR 2023-276, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage reappropriating and adopting substantial amendment 3 to the 2021 Housing and Community Development Annual Action Plan, 2021 Action Plan.
Waive reading.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Public hearing on this item, Mr. Rivera, the public hearing on this item is now open. Does anyone wish to be heard? All right, come on forward. We don't have a mic set up. Why don't you, for now, just, oh, here we go. The clerk has it. Say your name for the record, what part of town you're from, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Jessica Parks. I live in East Anchorage, and I am with the Anchorage Coalition and Homelessness. I wanted to share my support for this substantial amendment, which will allow funding to go to support the Alaska Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS. This is a database that is required to be used by grantees of alcohol tax funds as well as other municipal funds. So seeing the municipality make some investments into that database is really exciting, and I would urge that continued support in the future, as that is an expensive database to maintain. And if we're going to require use of it, being able to help support the system is useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none. Public hearing on this item is now closed. What's the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Rivera, seconded by Ms. Brawley. Mr. Rivera?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly restating the comments I made on the other item. I do hope that the funding is going to allow the Alaska Literacy Program project to close out, because that project has been lingering for a while. And I know that's been, I imagine, a stressful environment for the folks who work at ALP to be under construction for such a long time. But yeah, looking forward to approval and encourage my colleagues to support. Thank you.
Anyone else? So I'll briefly speak to the public testimony we just received from Ms. Parks. Yes, it's expensive, and yes, we require it. But yes, there's a third reason why. It's an effective way for us to know who's in the system and how to connect them to services. And the more effectively we implement it, the more effectively we're going to move through this crisis and into a resolution phase of the process. So it's both a requirement and it's an expensive thing, and it works. And HUD really appreciates when we do it. So we're like all the other towns. So if there's no one else to speak on this item, members may proceed to vote.
Mr. Martinez? Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Ms. Bronga?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Constant?
Yes.
Mr. Cross?
Yes.
Ms. Brawley?
Yes.
Mr. Stolt?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. On a vote of 9-0, AR 2023-276 has passed the body. Next, we'll move on to item 5 on our agenda, audience participation. Anyone wish to be heard? Welcome. Please state your name, what part of town you're from. You'll have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you. My name is Meg Zalatal, and I am the Executive Director of the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness. I just wanted to thank the Health Department for their work on this plan and their continued collaboration, and can't help but let go that the HMIS system, it is the key to unlocking an effective homeless prevention and response system. It is extremely expensive. HUD makes a contribution to that system. However, it is not enough. The COC funding that the coalition administers is a small portion of that. The balance of state puts in a small contribution, but we really do need the contributions either from the participating jurisdiction funds or otherwise to make that system work for us. The coalition in the past several years has actually taken its organizational operating dollars to patch the funding together to make it work. And even now, it's somewhat undersized for what we could be doing with it. So I really wanted to underscore the opportunity we have with that database. And it's just one more way we can all be pulling in the right direction. And it is key to helping you all get the metrics you require under the alcohol tax. And the alcohol tax right now isn't a direct source of funding for that database. And we have similar conversations with philanthropy, which is also requiring the use of the database as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone at all? All right, so next we'll move to assembly member comments. We'll start on the phone. Mr. Salt?
No comment.
Thank you. Mr. Cross?
No comment, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
No comment, thank you.
Mr. Martinez?
No comments, thank you.
Ms. Bronga?
No comment.
Mr. Myers?
No additional comments.
Ms. Brawley?
No comment, thanks.
Mr. Rivera?
I do have a comment. So I just want to thank the Performing Arts Center for organizing a series of musicals that's going to be starting this week with Hamilton. I'm going to be seeing it on Saturday. I hope that folks get a chance to enjoy, and as you enjoy the entertainment downtown, to spend money at downtown businesses and then maybe spend some money in midtown businesses. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And now it's my turn. One of the things we did when it was time to fund ARPA, as we considered a funding investment in some critical organizations in the community, and the Performing Arts Center was one of those. And it was at that time that they started to revise their thinking on how they're going to do their shows, performing arts. And so this is really the implementation of that project. So in some ways, you had a hand in it and you ought to go and see it, or at least those maybe that were here before you. And I would also like to come back to the point that our testifier made and our two public testifiers on the HMIS system. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that there are three factors that are key in identifying a community of success in meeting the need and finalizing or pushing through this problem. One is that we have implemented a housing first mode in our community, that's a priority, get people housed. Second is that we utilize the HMIS system so that we know who's there, who's in need, when they come in and where they go out, so the interventions are effective. And the third is that we identify a lead organization within our community who we as government get out of the way of and just do our part, because government can't be the answer. It has to be driven by the community, and that is the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness in our town. And I look forward to us working with them and being part of the community conversation when we re-adopt the Anchored Home Plan's next innovation intervention. And that's the one that you as new members will have an opportunity to really dig into and understand how it works, what our role is, what all the other players' roles are, and how that's going to work. Once we've done that, and once we have spent every damn dollar that they've made available to us and chased every dollar that's competitive, then we make the argument to HUD that, hey, we're doing all that and now it's your turn. They're going to come through, and what's going to happen is we will have the resources to stop the battles back and forth among communities and neighborhoods. How are we going to solve this problem? That's how we get to the answer, is we do what we're doing and we do it more aggressively and we do it more efficiently, because we have all the pieces in place, as hard as it is when you go out on the streets to believe that. And so with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned.